have you been asking why are there only two political parties in the United States?
Yeah.
Good. So this clip explains why, and why no third party has ever won in the U.S. political election. And we're in an election year, and so I think this is pretty appropriate to watch. So let's go over this clip on why the U.S. has only two political parties, and if a third party could ever win.
I think we need at least 12 to cover everybody.
One of the expedients of parties to acquire influence within particular districts is to misrepresent the opinions and aims of other districts. Basically, Washington is saying that the formation of political parties, particularly on the basis of geography, whereby different regions of the country are bound to different political parties, is a dangerous precedent to set.
Okay, so I kind of cut the beginning of that video off because just to get to the juice of it. But George Washington was basically saying if you divide the country into political parties, you're going to make assumptions about the other jurisdictions that may lean a different way. Mm-hmm. And that's how the U.S. is now divided. It's like if you live in like a red state or a blue state.
Because we only had one party, and then the other one was not that one party.
No, we define states now by red or blue states.
Oh, okay, yeah, but that's because we only had two parties. What else can they be like?
No, that's the danger of assuming a territory is of the other party. Oh. You're looking at them not as like an American. You're looking at them as like a different political association. Right.
Obviously, though, despite Washington's warnings, political parties did develop, and at the time, developed around the geographical regions of the country. Ultimately, by the time that the Civil War broke out in 1861, the Democrats and the Republicans had already solidified themselves as the two primary national parties, and it's been pretty much that way ever since. Third parties have popped up occasionally throughout history. However, unfortunately, in order to keep the third parties from being viable national parties, the two main parties would absorb third platforms, thus eliminating the need for these third parties. In modern times, there have only been 3 elections where a third-party candidate had enough support to pose a threat, to some degree, to the two major parties. Strom Thurmond in 1948, George Wallace in 1968, and Ross Perot in 1992.
Isn't that crazy? So in the history of the United States, or since the Civil War basically, there's only been 2 political parties, and since then only 3 people have gotten close to actually
winning another
not even
not
winning
being but just even showing up as a statistic, like a significant.
And so that's how hard it is to win as a third party. No one's ever done it since the Civil War.
Okay, obviously it's very hard. But
the 2 parties keep it that way. That's why
I'm like, I don't think there's even 2 parties. It's a fake. It's just one giant party.
As you can see from these maps, while Thurmond and Wallace were successful at gaining electoral votes in the American South, none of the 3 attempts came anywhere near the required majority in the Electoral College to win the presidency. However, it is worth noting that some have accused third-party candidates of swinging elections. Ross Perot's run in 1992, for example, was credited at the time as the factor that led to Bill Clinton's win that year. However, other studies on that election have claimed that Perot took votes from both President Bush and then Governor Clinton about equally. That said, in recent years, third parties have not been anywhere near as successful. Overall, third parties haven't gained any electoral votes since 1968. However, they have gradually increased their share of votes in recent years. For example, in 2012, Gary Johnson, the Libertarian candidate, garnered less than 1% of the vote share. In 2016, however, Johnson was again the Libertarian nominee and gained just over 3%, the highest vote share of any third-party candidate since Ross Perot's 1996 performance. In 2016...
So basically what they're saying is more people are voting for third party, but because of how our electoral votes are set up, they don't get any vote, like none of those votes count for them because you have to win the state. And so even though more people are voting third party, it's not making any impact yet because of how our voting is set up.
There's so many things that when I ask questions, the biggest issue is the Electoral College. And I'm like, why do we have that still? I'm still not sure what it. I'm not sure what purpose it serves now.
Well, let's
if besides being a.
It's like daylight
stumbling
savings
block.
time. It's like we can't get rid of it, even though it doesn't serve any purpose.
The Libertarian Party had ballot access in all 50 states, while the Greens had only 44, with write-in access in 3 further states. By comparison, the Constitution Party only had ballot access in 24 states, with write-in access in 22. This is because states have complicated procedures to get candidates' names on the ballot. These procedures usually include a fee and a petition in which candidates gain signatures. It's also worth noting that these procedures vary from state to state. Now, this brings me to a very important point. Third parties in the US have been largely unsuccessful in their bid to influence US politics for 2 reasons. One, because the 2 major parties have usually usurped important parts of the third party's agenda. And 2, because of the winner-takes-all system in US political elections that puts third parties at a significant disadvantage. As we mentioned earlier, in 2016, Gary Johnson, the Libertarian nominee for president, gained about 3% of the vote nationally. However, because states award electoral votes to the person who gained the most votes within that state, Johnson was not awarded any electoral votes. It's worth noting that the winner-takes-all system is decided by each state. The only states not to adopt the system are Nebraska and Maine, who both award electoral votes based on the congressional districts within their states. In 2008 and 2016, both states gave 1 electoral vote to a candidate that did not win the state as a whole. Nebraska in 2008 awarded their 2nd congressional district to Barack Obama, and in 2016, Maine awarded its 2nd congressional district to Donald Trump. As a result of this winner-takes-all system, third parties find it nearly impossible to gain the required number of electoral votes.
Well, does that answer your question? It's just I guess the electoral college that keeps screwing everything up. But also, I'm sure there's more.
Well, I
there's
know,
more
but
to
that
it
was
than
another question I had. Why just 2 political parties? And then what is the purpose of the how, I mean, I know what the original purpose was and,
Well,
but
why?
it seems like every time I have other questions about help with our political problems or issues, it seems like the electoral.
Do you understand though why there are only 2 political parties now?
Yeah, it's like impossible to get a third one.
Yeah, because
The
I guess
2 big ones don't make room for another one.
So there's like a duopoly in our political system that we can't break out of. For when was the Civil War? Like 150 years ago? Hi everyone, hope you liked the video. Remember to like and subscribe if you want to see more.
Happy 420, wherever you are. Bye.
And if you don't have buds, we're your buds.